What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the workshop. Now in this video I'm going to make a live edge desktop from this piece of flamed beech that I've had in the workshop for a while. Now this is a part of a series that I'm working on. It's the Whiskey Room project series. So I started to build a whiskey room in my house. I'm converting my sitting room into kind of a whiskey room type of vibe, and this is going to be one of the projects for that. So I've already done the wainscoting in the wall. If you want to go back and watch that video, you'll see how I did it again, made it nice and easy, nice and cheap from moisture proof MDF, and it looks fantastic. So when I'm installing this at the end of this video, you'll get to see the stage that the whiskey room is now at. But in this video, we're going to make a live edge desk from a slab. Now, I've already taken a slab when I made a resin oak coffee table and flattened it. And I did an in-depth video on how to flatten a slab with a router jig. We're going to be using the exact same process in this video, so I won't go too in-depth into it. But if you want to go back and watch that video, I suggest you do so. I'll briefly skim over it. It's just a very laborious task, and I'll show you the jig that I'm going to use. So without further ado, let's jump in and look at the slab. Okay guys, this is the slab in question. Like I said, it's a piece of flamed beech, a nice live edge slab, but we have a bit of prep work to do on it, and we have a bit of, it's mostly just kind of labour now that we have to put into this to get it where it needs to be. So it's just going to be a slab top. That's what I'm going to install. It's going in beside my fireplace. It's for my computer desk. It's where I do all my video editing, and that's going to be inside my whiskey room area. And I'm going to mount it to the wall using some big steel L brackets I have. These are salvaged out of a real old factory. They're real heavy duty. They held up a big transformer, so I'm going to take the abrasive wheel to these, clean them up, and get some black hammerite on them, and it'll fit with the theme of the room nicely. So they're going to be underneath. There'll be no legs visible. The desk will just be sitting in a little kind of alcove that I have between a wall and my big stone fireplace. So that's the plan. I already have it marked out, so I'm trying to get the best yield I can out of this piece. It has some knots in it. It has some places where the branches were breaking out, so we have to do some resin work in order to fill them. And there's a whole section down here that I want to kind of get rid of because I don't want to be dealing with this. So like I say, I have it marked out to the dimensions. It's 145 centimeters, 1,450 millimeters is the total length of the desk needs to be. And I've decided to put a straight edge right across the back here. So that's where my cut is going to go. So I'm going to get a good, one side has to be a perfect straight edge to go against the wall, and that's where I've decided to put it there. Again, I'll give you a close-up as I'm explaining all this. So that's the shape. So the first job we have to do now is take the track saw and cut this to length. So you have to cut off this bad end and cut off this end. Then we have to break off all the bark, get anything that we need to get off this wood off the wood. Then we need to get it into the jig and flatten it. Then we can finally dimension it. We need to do the resin work on it. I'm going to make a few bow ties inserts in this video as well, because we have some checking and splitting. So I'm going to maybe do some walnut or maybe some sapele. We'll see what wood is going to match best to this once we have it all planed down and get the initial sanding done on it. And then we might cut in some bow ties just for some strength to stop it splitting, like I said, and it's also very, very decorative as well. So a little bit of resin work, a little bit of bow ties, a lot of labour, and the live edge desk. Let's do it. Okay, first thing we want to do is cut off the end and cut off that end and get it roughly to the dimension it needs to be. So track saw time, and let's get this end cut off. Okay, so the track saw went 95% of the way through, so we'll just finish it off. It's only a small bit of saw cut. Just like that. Let's say 98% of the way through. That was pretty easy. Now let's do the other end. Okay, Okay, so there's our slab cut down to size, and that Bosch track saw is a fantastic tool. I can't recommend it enough. It just powers through things. And this is over 2-inch thick beech, and it just went through it like butter. So it's a great tool. I know it's a bit on the pricey side, but if you're into a track saw, definitely look at that. I'll do a review on it because how the tracks go together is super quick and easy as well. So yeah, it's a good tool. I'm not paid to say that. I'm not sponsored by Bosch or anything. Just my opinion. So let's get the bark off this thing now, and it's just a case of see how well it's stuck on. Hopefully not too well. And yeah, it is pretty well stuck on. So I'm going to have my work cut out for me here. So screwdriver and old chisel. Right guys, all the bark is off. It's roughly off. It's not down to what it needs to be. So I'm going to take a flapper to this once it's all flat and sand all that up. Now I've just cut a straight edge off the back of it as well. I'm about 20 mil off my line where I intended my line to be, but I think this straight cut is looking quite good. So I have still some natural edge on the back here, and I might use this as an area to take my cables down. So my laptop or my PC screen is going to sit somewhere about here on this side of the bench. So this would be a nice area just to drop the cables down through, rather than drilling a big circular hole in the bench to take everything down through. Why not take it down through a natural edge? So that might be the plan. We'll flatten it, we'll see how this is going to look, and that might be a little happy accident there. So now let's get this thing into the jig, and yeah, the laborious task of flattening. It's not much fun, but let's do it. Okay guys, we're all set up in the router flattening jig. So this is how you flatten a live edge slab. Now I did a full video on how to do this. So part of my oak resin table build, as I said already, there's a full video on how to build one of these jigs. So I'm not going to go into it now. I'll just give you a brief rundown. So you have two perfectly parallel walls that run either side. My floor is my reference surface, so that's good and flat, and I've put a sheet of MDF on it just to make sure that my surface is perfectly flat. That's my reference surface. So I build my walls off my reference surface, and like I say, these two walls are perfectly parallel, so I know I'm perfectly straight across. Then I have my sled that runs up and down, and my router moves forward and backwards in my sled. So the idea is very simple. There's your router, sticks out there. There's your runners that run on your walls. And this gives you a perfectly flat reference surface so that you can put a perfectly flat face on this. Then you can flip it over and you can do the other side. That will give you two perfectly parallel faces opposite each other. Now, one of you guys asked me in the last video that I done this, why did I not use my hand plane to do this? Well, first off, it's full of knots like the oak table was, so planing that is a disaster. And you can't scribe parallel lines onto wavy live edges. It's unbelievably difficult to make sure that you have two perfectly flat faces. But by building a jig like this, you can. Now, most important with the slab is that you lock it in place and that you pack it, because it's not going to sit even. Again, it's not flat, so it's going to rock. So pack it, make sure it's not going to rock, lock it in place. So I have loads of little blocks around it, just locking it in place, and it's good and stable, because if this moves, then you're not getting a flat face. If you put pressure on this and it dips with the router, then obviously you're routing different levels into your top, and that's no good. This has to be perfectly stable in order for this to work, and it's how you establish two perfectly parallel flat faces in a live edge slab. Again, I have a full video on how to build a jig. Let's just get on and do it now, because yeah, this is just brute force and ignorance, and it's a lot of hard work, a lot of noise, a lot of blood, sweat and tears until you get through this, and yeah, it's not very much fun. So I'll crack on and do it. I'll show you some of the process parts of the way through, and yeah, but I'll just rock on and do it, because like I said, it's just noise and dust and misery flattening a slab. So let's get on and do it. Okay, here we go, guys. One perfectly flat side. Now, so lots of light passes is what I recommend. It gives you a nice finish, so you don't have to do too much sanding. I have a bit of tear out here and there, but I'll be able to hit this now with the hand plane. A really sharp blade and a smoother plane should sort that out, and a bit of sanding, it shouldn't be an issue. It's just around the knots and stuff. They're a little bit tricky, but we'll be able to work that out. Take a pencil, scribe it all over the whole top. That means that way when you take off all the pencil, you know you've hit the entire surface at the top. Take plenty of breaks, swap hands, because the constant vibration of the router, or any tool for that matter, can be quite dangerous. You can get what's called vibration white finger, where you kill off the nerve endings in your hand. So if you take your hand away from a tool that you've been using for a long time, like I said this in the previous video as well, that if your hand is tingling, then that's nerve damage. You're starting to do nerve damage then. It's time to take a break. So yeah, just watch that. And it's pretty much that easy. Over and back. Now I can flip this over because I have a flat reference surface. This will sit perfectly flat against that surface, and these two rails then will allow me to establish a perfectly parallel face to this one. So I'm going to get on and do that now, and when that's done, I'll get back to you. Okay guys, there we go. That's the slab now flattened, two perfectly parallel flat faces. This is the underside done now. It's just a couple of hours work, and take your time, light passes and swap hands so that you're not damaging your hands from that constant vibration. Now, I have a hollow spot here, here and here. It's to the front edge, to the live edge side, so it's not going to make any difference. In order to get those out, I would have needed to take another 5mm off this again. Absolutely no need to do that. Like I say, this is the underside of the table, that's the live edge front, so it's going to be wavy anyway. And once this is perfectly flat and parallel to my face in the areas where my brackets are going, that's all that matters. So I don't spend any more time on this now. That'll all be getting sanded. You won't even see it. It's the live edge front, so no point in taking another 5mm out of this piece of beech. And it has a beautiful flame running through it now, so it looks absolutely fantastic. I'm going to get a finish on this and a bit of resin in it. It's going to look stunning. So that's it for today. I'm going to get out of here now because it's getting quite late, so you guys are going to join me tomorrow. Okay guys, it is the morning after the night before, as I say, and there's an absolute storm outside now, so it's raining cats and dogs. But I'm going to flatten, or the top is good and flat. I just want to take all the router marks off it now, so I'm going to sand it to about 100 grit. And once that's done on both sides, I'm going to do the resin work. So we have to plug all these cracks with the resin. So all the cracks where the knots are, it's going to be resin work. And then I'm going to put some bow ties into where the splits are. So let's get on and do that. So a lot of sanding, not much to this. I'm just going to mark it all with the pencil all across the top. And once the pencil mark is all removed, I know that I've hit everywhere. My top is good and flat now, and it seems to be staying flat, which is good. So yeah, just a case of sand. Okay, so I have some areas of tear out that was left over from the router, so bits and pieces here and there. I'm just going to work it down now with the smoothing plane. I have a good sharp blade in it. I'm heading kind of diagonally across the grain because the grain patterns are moving in several different directions here, so I don't want to risk getting any more tear out, but a good sharp blade, and we're just going to try and work some of these areas. That are worst affected, because some of it is kind of deep, so we want to get that out, and we don't want to be sanding all day. So the plane is the way to go. And with a good sharp blade, even moving across these knots is not really a problem. Okay guys, all sanded up to 100 grit, and I've sanded the front and the back, so we've knocked off all the back, we have it all prepared there, and I've just carved a little section in the back here, so where the natural edge runs in like I was saying to you, that's what I'm going to use to take my cables down from the PC and stuff. So I just carved a little bit more just so I can get a plug socket down there, or a plug and whatever, HDMI leads and the usual USB cables, all that kind of stuff. So that'll all go down there. It's a kind of nice natural edge and it kind of suits the timber. So it's also cut to size, so it's cut to its final dimensions now. So I just took the framing square and squared off my back edge down both sides, so it's cut to its final dimensions. So now, we have a couple of jobs I have to do now, so I have to do the resin work. So I want to prepare these cracks with some resin. So I'm going to tape up the bottom and I'm going to pour some clear resin down into these, let that set just to prime everything, and then we'll mix the copper resin once that's set and we'll get that down, because resin can disappear into wood pretty quickly. So I don't want to pour copper resin down and then have it all sink into the wood and disappear. So we'll prime it first with the clear stuff, let that go off. And yeah, then we can start looking at making up some bow ties to go into this. So we have a couple of cracks. We have a crack on this end and we have a couple of cracks on this end. So we make some nice bow ties, and they should be a real nice decorative feature. So let's get on it. Okay, first thing I want to do then is block off the end of all these knots where I'm going to be putting my resin down. Now, we're kind of a big hole here that I kind of need to plug, but I'm going to just tape off. So I have some mold release tape. So we're going to tape over all these cracks just to make sure that our resin doesn't run out. Just like that. Okay, so that's the bottom all blocked off, so we can pour some resin down into these cracks and hopefully it doesn't come running out the bottom. I only want to seal it from the top. I'm not worried about the bottom. So yeah, we can flip this back over now. Okay, let's mix up a bit of this now. Hopefully I have enough in this to do what I need. I should have. This is the glass cast resin. So this is the surface resin. This is glass cast 3. And you guys would have seen me use this on the oak resin table build. I used this in the glass cast 10, the deep pour resin. Again, this was supplied to me by the guys at glassfibersupplies.ie. So if you want to check them out, that's what supplied me with all this gear. They have everything you need, all the colour, all the pigment, all the casting resins, all the fiberglass. So definitely give the guys a check out if you're in Ireland and you want to get some of this stuff to do a river table or anything like that. So it's a mix of 2:1 by weight. So let's turn on the scales here now. Get this on and zero it. Like I said, you would have seen me do this in my oak resin table build. I did a full in-depth build on that. So let's get some of this resin in. There we go. Just mix that good and proper in, and it's good to go. It's a little bit on the thick side today, so if it does get, it's quite tacky because it's quite cold in the shed today, but you can heat this stuff up so you can sit your bottles in a bucket of warm water and it makes all the difference. I'll just give them a little zap with a heat gun, and it really does help mix them up. Like I say, this one is very thick, so I'll get mixing this, and when it's all mixed I'll get back to you. Okay, we're all mixed up. I hit it with the heat gun and it's good and runny now. Again, I have a full series on how to use this stuff and how to do a resin table, so I don't want to go through it all again, but it's nice and easy to use. So I'm just going to pour it down inside in these cracks now. Fill them up a small bit, let this set, and then we'll get some of the copper resin down. So I just want to let that to go down inside the cracks, just to fill it up a small bit. That will disappear down into it and start sealing it up. Okay, there we go. That's the holes pre-filled with some clear resin. I'll let that sink down into it now. Let it fill up those holes and let it kind of stabilize the wood around it. And then I'm going to sand it back flat, and then we'll pour in some of the copper resin on top of that. So we'll give that a few hours now just to go off, and it should be good to go. Right guys, a good few hours have passed by. The resin has kind of set up there now, and now I'm just making some bow tie inlays. So I just marked them out, cut them out on the bandsaw. Very, very simple. Now I'm just cleaning up the edges with a chisel. They don't have to be exactly perfect. They don't have to be exact replicas of each other. Just get the sides nice and straight. and everything nice and smooth, and we can mark them out then and get them routed in. Okay, so like I said, the resin is all set up now. That's good and tacky, so we can get the other resin down on top of that, and we can get the bow ties in place. So these are just inlay bow ties. They're essentially a double-ended dovetail, and you put them across a crack and it stops the crack then from pulling apart. I left these ones 15 millimeters, so they're just over ½ an inch and in depth. So we're going to route them in now. So we're going to mark them corresponding. I did make one big one, but I don't think I want to put that in. So we're going to use the 4 small ones. I have a crack here, here, here. So I think 3 there would be nice, and I have 1 small one to do on this side. So I have them kind of positioned to where I want them. So I'm just going to mark them around, mark them out now, and then I'm going to number each one to each slot. And then we're going to freehand route these out. So that's number 1, number 1. Okay guys, I have the router set up. I have the depth stop set to about 12 mil. So I'm going to leave these about 3 mil proud and then plane them down. So I'm not going to go to full depth of the actual bow ties. Now, I have a 6 mil bit in there. It's like a real narrow, fine bit. I'm going to freehand this. So no templates. You can make templates if you're not confident with freehanding with a router. Just take your time, use a very small fine bit, and you shouldn't have a problem. A palm router would be better than this big yoke, but I haven't got a palm router, so I'm going to have to use this. So take my time, and I'm going to crack on with this. So I mightn't be able to get you guys in close to this, but I'll do my best, and just to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish it off with a chisel then, so let's crack on and do it. Okay, so there's the results of the freehanding. So close to the line as you dare go. Be careful because the router can skip and it can pull itself into cuts at times, so just be careful of that. So most of the material is gone now, so we can clean this up with the chisel and it's going to be nice and easy. So I'll get on and do the rest of these, the other 3, and then we'll come back and I'll show you cleaning these out with a chisel. Okay, now that we're all routed out, it's time to chop down. So it's going to be nice and easy. Just want to make sure we get our chisel right on our line. Get it nice and perpendicular, so look down alongside the chisel. And just make sure we take out that material. Right on our line. There's not much more to it than that really. With most of the material gone, it's pretty easy chop out. So there we go. It's nice and snug in there now with a little bit of glue. That'll be lovely, and we can plane it out, and it should help keep that crack from spreading. So I'll get on to the rest of these now, then we get them glued in place and let them set. Okay, there we go. We're all chopped out and they're fitting nicely, bar this one here. I had a bit of a wayward chop, a little bit over eager with the mallet, and yeah, I took a little bit out past the line here. So we have to do a little repair there. It wouldn't be a project without having to do some repair or fix some mistake, but we won't worry about it too much. So let's get some glue on these now, get them hammered in and fit in place. Like I say, they're all numbered to each slot, so each slot is cut for each individual bow tie. And yeah, nice and simple. Let's get glue on them. Bit of glue down the hole. Get these in place. Just like that. Bit of tissue. Always have a bit of tissue hand before you start gluing. Okay, don't have a tissue, a towel will do. I'll just tap these guys home now. Perfect. Let's get the rest of them in. Okay, there we go. That's our 4 bow ties, inlays in place across all our cracks, so that should help stop it splitting. Now they're very, very simple to do. They don't have to be exactly the same, so they don't have to be carbon copies of each other. As long as you get some nice straight edges on them, you're good to go. Mark around them, freehand it out, finish with the chisel and tap them home, and they really are that simple, and they are a beautiful little detail as well as serving a purpose of stopping the crack from splitting further. Like I said, it's essentially a double-ended dovetail, so the wood now can't pull out to the wide ends. Works exactly like a dovetail. So now what we want to do is mix up the copper resin and get that copper resin into these cracks and let that set overnight then, because it's late again. I want to get all this in place for tonight, and then we'll get back at this tomorrow. So let's mix up our copper. So I put a lot of pigment in this because I really want that copper to pop. Probably put too much, but it only takes a couple of drops. It's a really good color pigment. Okay, so after hitting with the heat gun, you can see how nice and runny that is now. So we're just going to get this and just pour it in right down into those cracks. Just let it work its way down. And also when it's nice and runny, we can just take a syringe. We can just drop it down a little bit more precise, just into all these fine cracks. And we'll be sanding all this back down, so we'll just let it sit into all this. Okay, there we go. That is all the resin in now. I've just got to watch this over the next little while now and keep topping it up as it disappears down into the wood. It seems to be pretty stable now, so I've probably filled it up. It might take 1 or 2 more drops, but not too much. Now, I have filled around the bow ties with the copper resin as well and filled the cracks around the bow ties. There wasn't really much of a gap around the bow ties, so it mightn't stay there. When I sand it off, it mightn't be there, but it might be a lovely little effect to have a little gold line or a little copper line around each bow tie as well. Just a little experiment, give it a try, see if it works. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, it's no big deal. But yeah, that's it now. It's getting quite late, so I need this overnight now to do its thing. And tomorrow then, or the next day on this video, it's going to be a case of sand this flat and get the finish on it. So we're nearly done. Okay guys, it's the following day after the resin, and most of the resin is set up now, but I had to pour a little bit more this morning, so that's still a little bit tacky, so I can't sort out this end. So what I'm just going to do for this part is sort out the bow ties and start sanding back some of the areas that I can actually sand back. So we'll take a hand plane to these, get them planed down, and we can start finishing up this area. This area and this area I kind of have to leave for another day because like it's kind of cold weather now, and the resin is taking a longer time to actually set up. So not much we can do about it, we just have to persevere. So let's sort out these. Okay, so we're just going to do a bit of prep work on these bow ties. I have this one planed down already, so it's very simple. Just going to work them down. Now hopefully we get some of the copper resin to stay around them. It's only going to be a very narrow gap if it does stay around them, but we might achieve some of the effect that we're after. Right guys, there's the results. This bow tie is perfect. You can see here, there's the mistake I made when I mishit with the chisel, but it's filled in now. It has some copper resin down inside it, so it is just one of those things. It is what it is. There's not much I can do about it now. With a nice finish on this, a bit of oil and stuff down on top of it, it'll hardly be noticeable. But the resin stayed in the cracks, which is what we want. Now it didn't stay around the bow ties because the gap was tiny around them. If I had a bit of forethought, and if it was something you want to do, you could maybe leave a little wider gap around them and then fill it with resin if you wanted that copper to stay around it. But didn't happen this time. It was an experiment, but yeah, there we go. We still have it inside in the cracks, which is good. So this will show up when we put a finish on it. So let's sort out this bit over here. Okay guys, there we go. That is one knot done. So again, you can warm it up with the sandpaper, the resin, and you can just scrape this stuff off because you don't want to be sanding this because it just kind of turns to mush. And once you have the heavy stuff off, then you can sand it back to where it needs to be, and then working your way through the grits, you'll polish it back up again. So you can see how nice now this looks with all the copper in it. This was all broken. This was a bark inclusion if you remember, but now it's full of that copper resin. It looks fantastic, and you can see all these cracks. Now once I hit these with the higher grits, they'll stand out even more, and then when you get the finish on, they'll really pop out, and you get to see all these lines, and you can see all the resin is in the cracks here as well. So looks pretty good, and I'll crack on to the rest of this now, and then when it's time to get the finish on, I'll get back to you. Okay, we are all sanded up. All the resin work is polished back, sanded up, ready to go. So I sanded it to 320 grit. There's no point in going any further than that. Any higher than that, and you might not get the oil into the wood. So I think that's perfect for this top. 320 is more than enough, and it's lovely and polished. So now it's time to get the finish on. I've been looking forward to this since I started this project. So I'll get you guys in for a closer look, and we'll see the finish hit the flames and see what this table is going to look like. Let's do it. Okay, let's get some oil on this. That is a pretty stunning piece of wood. You can see all our flames now jump out, which is very, very nice. Yeah, let's get some on this side. Well, that is absolutely beautiful. I'd like to be able to take credit for it, but it's all the wood that's making that look so fantastic. There's a beautiful flame in this piece of beech, and I think the walnut keys really work well with this colour. And the bit of copper resin now inside, and the cracks, the splits where the branches were coming out, where those knots are, looks fantastic. And yeah, that's really after setting that off. Okay guys, there we go. That is the first coat of oil into it, and I have to say it looks absolutely stunning. I'm really happy with how that turned out. It's a beautiful piece of wood, and it's going to look fantastic in the whiskey room. So now, over the next day or two, I'm going to get several coats of oil into this, and when that's done and it's all ready to go, we'll take it inside and we'll install it in the whiskey room, and I'll give you a look at how the whiskey room is looking. Look at how the wainscoting turned out, look at how all the painting looks, and you can see this in beside the fireplace. So let me get the oil on it, and we'll jump right back in and get it installed. Okay guys, today is the day. We're going to install this into the whiskey room. So this is my new live edge computer desk. I've just hit it with some Carnauba wax, a liquid furniture wax, just to give it a nice polish up. So there's a lovely satin sheen to it now. There's several coats Danish oil on it. I have the brackets all painted up and screwed to the wall. Didn't want to bore you guys with that process, just me grinding and then taking some hammerite spray, spraying it on. So black metal paint is all it is. So they're on the wall, ready to go. Just take this thing inside now and get it installed. Let's do it. Okay guys, here we go. The brackets are on the wall, so like I said, they're all painted up, ready to go. Nice big strong L brackets. They should help keep the bench nice and flat. It is a good stable piece of wood anyway, so I'm not expecting too much issues there. So I'll give you a look around the room now in a minute. You can see the effects of the wainscoting and the new colour and what the room looks like. But let's get the slab in on these now. Like a glove. Okay, in order to fit this in place, I'm just going to literally screw it down. I'm going to drill a couple of pilot holes and use some screws, and that should be absolutely fine for this application. So let's get on and do that. Okay guys, there we go. It is in place, all finished up, ready to go, and it's good and solid and looks fantastic in place. Now the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that it sticks out past the fireplace here, so it would have been better if the timber was this way around. I thought about that, but the underside of this is not nearly as nice as the top, and the angle that the bark slopes off this piece would have looked wrong because it would have been sloping in the way, which means you would have had a hard edge at the top rather than at the bottom, and it wouldn't have looked as nearly as nice. So yeah, if this piece was the other way around and the narrow edge was here and the wider edge was here, it would have been beautiful. But you know, nature doesn't grow the way you want it, so you make do, and the top is far nicer. So there's no traffic up and down here anyway, so that corner doesn't really matter. So that is why it is like that. But it looks pretty good. Now we've shelves to build and light fittings to put up here in a future video. Let's get everything in here now and I'll give you a look at the room. There we go, guys. Everything is now in place. It's a little bit hard to light this room because it's a bit dark. I still have to make a light fitting for here, but you can see it there now. It's in place, fits well, looks lovely. Now I have 2 shelves, like I said, to go over this. They're going to be exactly the same as this, so I won't record that build. It's the same process again, making out the same timber. So it'll be a shelf here and a shelf here. Then there's a light fitting to go up here, which I'm going to build, so I will video that. I have a cabinet then to make to go underneath here for a couple of drawers to keep books, documents, that kind of thing in. So that will be another future project. But yeah, it's all done now and in place, so I'll give you a quick look around the room. Okay guys, here's a quick look at the room so you can see the wainscoting, how it turned out. Painted now, it all looks fantastic. That was super easy to do. Like I said, I have a video on that now if you want to go back and watch it, but it was a quick look at the whiskey room, how it's turning out. So we still have a bunch of projects to do in here, which I'm going to video and show you on the channel. Just wanted to give you a quick update after the place has been painted and all the wainscoting and everything is finished. You can see the edge around the top is filled now, so I took a fill piece, stuck it in there, hit it with some filler, sanded it, and that sorted out the gap I had all the way around the room. So yeah, now we have a light fitting we have to build, so I'm going to take another big slab, flatten that and make a light fitting. So I'm going to record that and show you that video. Light fitting for there, I'll record that and show you that. Build a cabinet, I'll show you that. Build a whiskey barrel, I'll show you that. And yeah, so it's taking shape in here now. Right guys, there we go. That is one computer desk all finished up for the whiskey room. So that's part 2 of the whiskey room project. So there's going to be more to come. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you didn't find it too long-winded. So give it a thumbs up if you did like it. And if you're new here, think about subscribing. Comments and questions below. Anything you want to know, any opinions you have about it, just let me know in the comments and we'll get back to you. Next project coming up is going to be this piece of timber right here. So we're going to turn this into a light fitting. So I have a nice plan for this with some classic Edison style bulbs. So that's going to be the next project that's going to go on, the ceiling of the whiskey room. So be sure, stick around and subscribe and join me for that one. Okay guys, take it easy. I shall see you in the next one.